All right, so boom. I don't know if anybody is watching NXT, which I still stand on as being one of the most underwatched and underrated promotions. But they brought back NXT Underground, right? Which I love. I love the fact that NXT brought back NXT Underground. We're going to be talking about Gable Stevenson this segment, but I kind of want to touch a little bit about NXT Underground just for a bit, just for a bit. Um, NXT Underground, I think, is perfect. I think that when the Underground concept was on Raw, it was kind of weird and startling because the Underground brand, I guess you can say, was not synonymous with Raw. It didn't feel Raw-esque because Raw is such a polished PG product. At least now, that Underground kind of felt a little bit out of place, and the talent there just wasn't. I don't think that it was, what it is in NXT, and I feel like NXT adapting that underground um, kind of kind of format and style, I think it works because NXT has a little bit of grit to it, right? Like I feel like if this is a great comparison. If WWE was the city of New York, Raw would be Manhattan, right? Raw would be Manhattan, SmackDown would be Queens, and I feel like NXT would be Brooklyn. And I feel like the thing that makes Brooklyn Brooklyn is the fact that it's just chock full of authenticity and grit. And I feel like that underground concept kind of fits that mold and fits that brand. So I think that them adopting that underground standpoint and kind of position is absolutely perfect. And I'm so glad that they're implementing it. But I wanted to particularly talk about seeing Gable Stevenson on there. Gable Stevenson made an appearance on NXT Underground. Obviously, we talked about him on the show 3-4 weeks back. He has decided to opt into his last year of eligibility in the NCAA. I think it's because he probably wants to go after another national championship, potentially graduate. But he still has his NIL deal with the WWE. I don't believe that he is able to compete with the WWE just yet. I don't think he's allowed to have a match. But in this particular segment, we saw Gable Stevenson bring NXT Underground to Suplex City, and it was amazing. His German suplexes were so clean. It was some of the cleanest German suplexes I've ever seen, and they were on big guys, which I think shows you how strong he is or how strong they want to make him look. But I think this was absolutely perfect. Obviously, if you have a guy like Gable Stevenson, who once again is opting into his fourth year of eligibility for the NCAA, who cannot compete, and you want to integrate him into the product, this is a good way to integrate him into the product without him necessarily competing, right? So it doesn't go against his NCAA responsibilities. It doesn't go against those rules and regulations. But it's a good way to begin integrating him into the product. It's a good way to get the WWE audience familiar with Gable Stevenson. And he just absolutely looks like a menace. And there's so many possibilities and so many ways you can go about him in WWE. Like one of my friends, once again, Omar, was talking about how he could easily do, be with American Alpha, which I think would be dope. Like him, Otis, Maxine, Chad Gable, I think would be a really, really, really nice kind of faction. But there's a bunch of different ways that they can go about him. But like Gable Stevenson is a generational talent, and I'm really, really excited to see how they use him moving forward. But these flies. But I want to know how y'all feel seeing Gable Stevenson on NXT Underground, seeing NXT Underground be a thing. Let us know how you feel about it in the comments. We're going to move right along. And it was announced. Well, we got a couple of announcements. Hold on. Because we have a couple of announcements pertaining to AEW, um, AEW and AAA, right? So first things first, it was announced this past week that AAA, Triplemania 31 Tijuana, will be airing on HBO Max, which is now known as just strictly Max. They already have a card for it, and the card features a lot of AEW wrestlers, obviously. For those of you who are unaware, AAA is a famous Mexican-based promotion wrestling promotion. My thoughts and feelings about it, I think that it's great. But I think that it's a part of a larger plan because we saw this past week also um, that AEW has secured another streaming deal. So essentially, this deal kind of puts AEW under the same umbrella as CMLL, and they are actually going to be streaming. I'm just trying to see what. Yes. So it says here that AEW will be streaming on VIX, which is it's a streaming service that's ran by a Mexican American media company called Televisia Univision, and it's going to be starting on Wednesday at 6 p.m. And they also hinted that AEW Collision will be streaming on VIX as well. So you see AAA on Max, you see AEW on VIX, which is a Mexican American streaming service. I think that this is hinting at the fact that AEW is about to start having content on VIX. I mean, not VIX, on Max. My apologies. We've been hearing about it. We've been hearing about the idea of a potential streaming service for AEW for a couple of years now, and with this kind of contract extension and broadcasting rights deal that they've inked when it came to the creation of AEW Saturday Night Collision, I feel like it was only a matter of time before we started seeing some news. But the fact that they have AAA on Max shows I feel like they're trying to test this out to see what the value is of having wrestling on Max. But at the same time, I also think that they know exactly what the value of wrestling is for Warner Brothers Discovery. AEW is arguably one of their most successful intellectual properties that they've had on Warner Brothers Discovery networks over the past 3 to 4 years. So I think that we're going to start seeing more wrestling trickle onto Max, trickle onto HBO properties. And it's about time. I'm really, really happy for AEW. I think this is going to be a great move. And I'm really, really eager and excited to see what kind of comes from it. But yeah, we want to know how you guys feel about AEW potentially coming to Max, AAA, triple. I'm pronouncing my words wrong. Triplemania, 31 Tijuana, that will be streaming on HBO Max. We want to know your opinions about all of this stuff. Leave them in the comments below. But that concludes our show for today. No, it was a very, very, I know it was a very, very short show. It was a nice little solo pod. Mo will be back, God willing, next week. But once again, thank you guys so much for rocking out with us. And we'll see you next week. Ba, 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 ba.